it got to the point where I realized like, hey, maybe this isn't the route to be able to get where I want to go. And instead, what if I just focus on tomorrow and today, and what can I do really well today? And if I could do something really, really well today, maybe it'll lead to things going better tomorrow, right? And I've taken that focus for a very long time, and that the only time I've ever seen any bit of success is with that focus, rather than this is where I want to be in 10 years, and trying to map out something that is going to have so many variables that it's going to be nearly impossible to even happen in the first place.
Welcome, millionaires and future millionaires. You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, a show where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their portfolio allocation. Now to your host, Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 406.
This is the podcast where we take a deep dive into the journeys, secrets, and strategies of self-made millionaires. In each episode, we sit down with regular people turned millionaires to uncover the real stories behind their wealth building. Whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or the untold lessons from those who've made it, you're in the right place. Tune in and discover what it really takes to build lasting wealth and change your life. Let's get started.
Hope everybody had a great Easter weekend. I know we did. It was great to celebrate. And man, we are right in the thick of kind of a whirlwind with the global economy and tariff talk and all sorts of things. I feel like the markets are moving daily at the tweets of the president and whatever meetings may or may not have been had. So definitely going to be an interesting kind of topic as we get into discussions with our millionaires here lately and what they're doing or not doing as it relates to their portfolio. But yeah, if you'd like to be on the show, send us an email, millionairesunveiled@gmail.com. We're always looking for new, great guests that are willing to share their stories. And man, we have this list that we keep building of all the different professions. And I think we're going to kind of read it off one of these days. But one that keeps coming to mind as we're on the heels and kind of in the middle of all the spring sports is professional athlete. One of these days we're going to get one. We know they make a lot of money, and I'm sure they're, investing it well. We know some of them have become billionaires now through their professions as athletes. So one of these days, hopefully we'll get a professional athlete on here to share their story. But for the everyday millionaire that's not a professional athlete, we definitely want some of your stories as well that fit in with, a lot of the ones that we've had on already. Today's guest, his name is John. He's got a net worth of $1.7 million. And today with John, we're going to take a deep dive into essentially the short-term rental Airbnb market and business. He has essentially made all of his money and has most of his net worth tied up in Airbnb-related businesses, his own. Has had several short-term rentals himself, and gonna be a great episode with him. So without any further delay, let's get right into it with John. John, you want to just give us about your background and what you're up to now?
Yeah, sure thing, man. So I call myself an Airbnb data analyst, meaning not that I work for Airbnb, but I analyze the data of all the Airbnbs that exist, and have been doing that for years now. And I essentially just help people identify properties that will be very profitable. In the past 3 years, I've helped identify 200 plus properties. Every single last one of them is profitable. So we have a 100% success rate, which is awesome. And I started that because I realized that I was really good at analyzing the data when I had my own Airbnbs, right? So I had a handful of them out of Chicago. COVID came around and kind of wiped out that business. I was able to sell off a good portion of the contracts, but the one thing I realized I did best was analyze the data. And so I tried to figure out how to build a business around that. And I have been able to do exactly that. And that's what I get to do all day, every day. So I can go definitely deeper into that story if you'd like, but that's the very quick
awesome
version. Yeah,
we're gonna get into the weeds on it here in a minute. But before we do, what's your net worth today?
1.7 million.
Nice. And what's the breakup of the 1.7?
So I'm trying to recall what I wrote down in that form. So I I know I got 1.5 million just in cash. $150,000 in cash. No, $200,000 in cash. Another about $200,000 in the business, and then another equity ownership stake within a business that is valued around 1.2 million right now, and that's pretty well it so far. I think that all adds up to 1.7.
And do you own any real estate yourself?
No,
Sold
I don't.
everything off?
Yeah, well, oh, sorry. That's where the other 100,000 is. I actually do own my own personal home with $120,000 in there.
Cool.
So, yeah, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. That's a breakdown.
Yeah. Let's take a deep dive into this. So talk to us about, I mean, you had these Airbnbs, COVID hit, you got really good at analyzing the data. Did you own any of those properties, or you mentioned you selling off the contracts? Were they apartments that then you rented in an Airbnb, or kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so no one really, a lot of people don't like rental arbitrage nowadays, which is where you rent a property and then re-rent it, right? Everyone frowns upon it, and I totally get it. But I didn't have a ton of money at the time, and I knew this Airbnb thing could work, and I kind of figured out a way to make it work. And so I did the rental arbitrage route out of Chicago, and in that city it worked, and I was able to get those contracts. I eventually pivoted to just a full property management contract type of company instead, and a cleaning company as well, and just started doing that instead. But then obviously COVID came around and wiped that out. So I didn't own any of the real estate myself. I am planning on owning as much real estate as I possibly can as time goes on, but I got to build up my. I'm still trying to build up my net worth, network, and be able to find more properties as time goes on and figure out how to do it at scale.
So, how old were you when you put one of those contracts, or put the arbitrage play into play? That first one.
23 or 24, I think, when I did that very first one. It was back in 2017. 2017 would have been the first one out of Detroit, Michigan.
And did you just graduate college? You go to college at all, or?
I did not. No, I did this like 1 year of post-secondary type schooling that was meant to be like a fast track of school. And I absolutely hated it. It was like a business thing. I didn't learn a single thing. But prior to that, I did television broadcasting for a year when I was 18, and I dropped out of that. And then I just knew I wanted to be in business. And so, but I had absolutely no money. I was telling people recently, like, if I had money, I probably would have opened up a bunch of Subways, because I knew some guys doing that and it seemed to be working. So I was like, if I had money, I would have done it, but I didn't have money. And so what I did instead was I became a financial advisor, right? Where you can actually build up your clientele client by client. And I started that when I was 21. And then from the ages of 21 to 24, I was able to build that up to I was able to build it up to where I got enough experience where a senior advisor was willing to take me on and give me a portion of his business to be able to help scale it. And I took over about $10 million worth of assets that he had. And I kind of had it set where I, had my name on the door. I had an assistant. I was managing $10 million. I was 23 at the time. And it was pretty easy going, but I absolutely hated it. And I knew I could never get great at it. And so I wanted out of it really badly. And so that's why I pivoted to the Airbnb business instead.
How much do you think you were making around that time?
Not a ton.
Airbnb? Okay.
Oh, wait, sorry. With Airbnb?
Prior to that.
So not a ton, honestly. Like, it sounds really cool to say I was managing $10 million, but the reality is that you make a percentage of that money, but then you still have to pay off the expenses. So I think at that time I was making a $2,500 a month base, which is not much. And then any commissions that I would make off of like any, life insurance that I would have sold at the time, which wasn't much because I'm not a very good salesman. And so I wasn't really selling anybody. But the idea was, if I could just keep building up that portfolio and the amount of money that I was managing, then I'd be making a lot more. My business partner was pulling in $1 million, and $1 million from recurring revenue from the money he was managing, which was about 90 million. And he was making like $100,000 sales on insurance policies that he was helping people with. So I knew there was a path to get there, but it just didn't excite me at all.
Wow. So did you quit cold turkey, or were you still working there while you started your Airbnb?
I opened up the first 2 Airbnbs, and I had my own room that I rented out. Like I had an extra room in my apartment, and I rented that out. And then I opened up 2 more while I was still working there. And then what I did was once I opened up those 2, I realized that I needed to raise money. And so I put together a business plan to try and figure out what the returns would look like if I brought on an investor, and kind of laid that all out and started asking around if anyone was interested in partnering with me to do this. I found 2 different groups that were interested, decided to go with one. Once I got the confirmation that they were good to go and that they were going to invest and we're going to move forward, that's when I talked to my business partner with the financial advising business and told him that it just wasn't going to work out, and I was moving on to go do something different, and he was totally fine with it. So yeah.
Wow. So walk us through, you scale from 1 to 2 to 3. I mean, what does that look like as you continue to kind of, grow the arbitrage business over time there?
So yeah, I had initially raised $250,000 Canadian at the time, which was pretty close in equal dollar value. But nowadays, that's like half the value of the USD. But I had raised that amount. Now it's not like I got all of that money just directly into my pocket. They're like, we can invest up to $250,000. When you're ready to invest, let us know, like with the property, and we'll send over the money for that property, and then we'll go property by property. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And so there's a very long story to this, but I'm not going to explain it all. Essentially, I ended up in Chicago, and within the first 2 weeks within Chicago, I had 3 different properties that people were willing to rent out to me, and were okay with me turning them into Airbnbs, which then turned into a 4th one like very shortly after. And so within about a 2-month period of me like getting it, setting it up, and everything, I had 4 Airbnbs in Chicago. From the, I guess, 2 months and 2 weeks from the time that I arrived in Chicago, I had 4 Airbnbs up and running, and each one of those would have cost about $20,000 to get up and running. And once I got those 4, they went straight into peak season, and they actually generated about $60,000 in additional profit during that time period, like money that we got to keep. And I was able to use that money to go open up another 2 listings, right? But I actually ended up opening up those 2 listings directly going into the slow season, and not realizing how slow the slow season was going to be. Because when you have Airbnbs in Chicago, you lose money in November, January, February, and sort of March. And I didn't realize that was going to come. And I drained my bank account to open up more listings and taking on more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had to go back to those investors to be like, hey, like, we're negative this amount this month, and the next month we're also negative this amount. And you know what I mean? It was about 3 months where I had to get another about $10,000 a month from them each time just to be able to cover the homes. Which absolute show. Terrible. Sucked, right? And then I think I might have picked up like 1 more, maybe 2. But then I had the landlord of the home that I was staying in, right, where I was living personally. I was telling her about what I was doing, and she's like, I got a property right down, like 4 houses down. She's like, you want to turn that into an Airbnb and manage it for me? And it's funny to think now, because like property management of Airbnbs is so well known because there's so many people who teach about it. But I didn't realize that at the time. And I was like, wait a second. I don't got to spend $20,000 to get this property up and running. And I don't have to pay the rent or the utilities or anything. And all I got to do is just do the same things I'm doing for these other ones. And you're just going to give me 20% of all the profit, like top line revenue. She's like, yeah. I was like, all right, let's do that. And then I never got another rental arbitrage again. Never got another one. And I opened up, all the rest I got were property management. And then I opened up a cleaning company solely to clean my properties. But the real sole reason for it was I hired one person to hire all the cleaners, manage all the cleaners. And then she also managed all the Airbnbs, and that turned into a full-time job for her. And the amount that I was paying in cleaning, once I brought it in-house, was enough to be able to pay her and all of the cleaners as well. And so then I essentially removed myself from having to do that job. And with all that being said, I'm kind of going real deep here just to kind of break it down for
this
you.
is
But
great. Yeah, this is awesome.
yeah. So with that being said, if we get into like 2019, we're looking at like, now we're in 2019 going into the summer of 2019. I think I probably had 7 arbitrage deals and like 3 or 4 maybe at that time of management contracts, and then the cleaning company on top of it. And then the one person who I hired was running all of it. And then I was just trying to support here and there when I could, but really she took care of everything. And honestly, I didn't do much. I didn't, my objective wasn't to scale the business to 200 plus properties as quick as I possibly could. And so I kind of just traveled a little bit more, opened up 2 more locations out in Scottsdale, Arizona. And that was kind of my life until 2020 hit. And 2020 was a whole other scenario altogether. You want me to get into that?
Yeah, hold on though. At the
Yeah.
peak, after you opened Scottsdale, what was like your total at the peak? How many were you managing? How many did you have contracts on,
Yeah.
et cetera? What did that peak
I think it was
look like?
I think it was just 15. I think I just
Okay.
peaked out at 15. Yeah, I always tell people like there's a reason why I haven't tried to rebuild the business. And it's because if you really want to be good at like building a Airbnb property management company, you need 2 skills. That's sales and operations. If you can do both of those fairly well, it's a really easy business to scale, because the sales is going to allow you to get more people to manage your properties, or for you to manage their properties. And then it's all just about operations as you continue to scale. And those are like 2 areas I'm not great at. So peak was only about 15 Airbnbs, which is nothing crazy.
Listen up, millionaires and soon to be millionaires. Do you ever buy anything online? I know I do. In fact, some of my favorite places to purchase are online. Do you know some of those favorite places that you buy from? There's some amazing websites out there, and many of them are powered by Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, and all the way in between to we just hit $1 million order stage. Yep, Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling shipping supplies or promoting productivity programs, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their personal in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better compared to other leading e-commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort, thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I love about Shopify is no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control of your business to the next level. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/unveiled, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/unveiled now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. That's shopify.com/unveiled. And thanks again to Shopify for supporting today's episode.
And how many were you cleaning, do you think?
15.
Oh, so you were just doing your own.
Yeah.
And then hadn't scaled the cleaning
Yeah.
essentially in Scottsdale at all?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Looking back at it, I don't look at that and be like, I absolutely crushed it. You know, I'm a genius. I did amazing things. I'm more just like, it was a nice passive business that I was able to build up. I learned a ridiculous amount through that entire process. And I think I took way more lessons than money when it came to that. But I'm
so
not
fast
upset with
forward, pandemic hits. Walk us through. I mean, March of 2020. What are you doing? Everything comes to a halt.
Yeah. So, man, like I still, whenever I think of March of 2020 and that whole time period, I can always just picture myself looking down at the shower in the drain in the shower, and it was just coated in my hair. And like, I'm not kidding. Like, it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. It was just so much hair was just falling out of my head because of how stressed I was, which has never happened again, thankfully. But yeah, so, you know, the actual problem was all the arbitrage or rental arbitrage contracts that I had, because as soon as that time frame hit where everyone's like, no one's allowed to travel, every single booking got canceled overnight. And I had like $30,000 to $35,000 a month in expenses. And I think I had like maybe $30,000 to $45,000 in the bank account, maybe a little bit more. Right.
Oh
but like,
gosh.
so I'm like, oh, great. Right. And so I just kind of went into this like extreme stressed out mode where I was like, well, these are still apartments and we're still in Chicago and people will still rent these out long term. And so I just got every single one of these properties onto like Zillow and rentals.com or whatever, and started getting them all rented out as fast as I possibly could. And I got literally every single one rented within that month, except for one, which extended a little bit further. I moved into one of them as well. The management contracts wasn't on me; it was on the other hosts, right, who actually owned the properties, and they were, dealing with the situation themselves. But yeah, that was essentially it. Like I just did everything I could to try and get the properties rented out. I got them all rented out, but then I had no money coming in. My employees had no money coming in. The business was essentially shut down, right? I still technically owned all of the uh, contracts to rent those places because I just sort of I subleased them out to other people for the 1 year, and the objective was to reopen them in 1 year. And then when it came to the property management contracts, I still owned all of those, and I was in good relationships with each one of those people as well. And so that's pretty much what happened, where I moved as quick as I could to remove all of the expenses I was going to have on a monthly basis, and then try to just figure out how to survive until I could get past that. And then I got into a scenario where I found somebody who actually wanted to just buy all the contracts.
So did your income essentially go to zero within a month or two?
Yeah, month. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were living in Chicago at the time too?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So fast forward, get through COVID. I mean, how did that lead you to essentially what you're doing now?
So there's a lot of nuances to it, but I'll give the high level overview. I had a little bit more time, obviously, with all these properties shut down and everyone kind of locked inside. And so I thought to myself, like, I'm going to put together a course about how to understand Airbnb data, right? And I've done this actually 3 times now, where I'm like, I'm going to build a course, I'm going to sell a course, right? And that's, make some money that way. And then I build out the entire course with the intent of like, I'm going to sell it. And then as soon as it gets to the point, I'm like, I can't be one of those guys. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't sell the course. And so I just don't do it. And I gave away the course for free on YouTube. And what ended up happening was just a lot of people went through that course, right? And they like started to watch it, and then they would reach out to me for advice or help or consulting. And then I would help them. And then the next person would, they would refer somebody over. And it was just kind of like this really small snowball effect that was happening. But I wasn't trying to scale it, and it wasn't really all that big. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I knew something that I could help people with. And so I was just kind of helping them as that time came. And yeah, like, it eventually got to the point where I realized like, hey, I could probably turn this into something. And I got advice from a friend years ago, where he goes, if you want to like get really, really good at something, just go work for somebody where you can do that full time, then become the expert from it, and then turn that into a business as time goes on, right? And I always hated the idea of working for somebody. So instead, what I did was I got a contract that was a pretty well full-time contract, right? Like it was a contract with TechVestor, which is the largest short-term rental investment fund now in America. And they contracted me full-time to just analyze data and help them acquire properties. And so I started doing that full-time, and that skilled out. And then we get to, I can kind of explain what that leads to, but that's what I did from COVID to getting to TechVestor, was essentially putting out this free content, free courses, building up a bit of a reputation, building up more of a skill set, and then wanting to lean into just doing that full time and figuring out how I could do that. And I did that with TechVestor.
Wow. And that's what led to kind of where you are today and some of the equity in the business, et cetera.
Correct. Yeah. So from doing that, I was able to help them acquire 140 properties in a span of about 2 years. And then they were shifting the way that they were doing things, which kind of put a halt to the number of properties that they were acquiring, which put a halt to the contract. And so then it became very obvious, where it's like, I want to keep doing this, and I need to figure out a way to be able to keep doing this and use this skill to be able to keep growing out this business. And I had an exclusivity contract with them at the time. And so we removed that exclusivity contract so that I could then go out and work with anybody. And then since literally tomorrow will be the 1 year anniversary of STR Search, which is the company that grew out of everything that I had done over the 2 years prior, and taking that skill of helping people acquire properties and turning it into a business for just anybody.
Wow.
So,
and are you still involved with them or with STS Search?
STR Search is my company. I'm the
Okay.
founder of STR Search. TechVestor is the investment fund, and yes, I'm still intimately involved with them and what they're doing, and still have the contract with them. And there's going to be a ton of stuff that we're going to be doing over the next 2 years.
That's awesome. So I want to ask, just given that you've had such a run with Airbnb, I mean, the state of Airbnb, they just released earnings not too long ago. I mean, numbers look strong, but you hear, certain markets oversaturation, et cetera. I'm just curious where your head is being that far into the data. I mean, what's the state of Airbnb, across the country in the United States right now?
Yeah, so every market's going to be a little bit different. Every single news headline that you're seeing is from the people who don't know what they're doing, to put it simply. The Airbnb was very, very, very easy in 2020 and 2021 because interest rates were really low and everyone in America was traveling to a handful of locations, which are anywhere outside of the cities, and they weren't going over to Europe or anything along those lines. So you had this insane demand for places like Gatlinburg, and then you had really low interest rates. And if you just moved quickly and got one of those properties, you were getting booked up like crazy. The property was appreciating even quicker, right? And so you looked like an absolute genius for making that decision. And then you fast forward 3 years, and COVID's over. People travel everywhere, and the properties are now overpriced, and the revenue demand is not there because people are going all over the place, right? And so a lot of these places that were considered like hotspots during COVID all just got crushed 2 years later. And if anyone had any little bit of foresight, you would have realized that at the time. Now, it didn't, some people bought in early enough that didn't matter because now they have like $400,000 of equity built into those homes, so they're doing just fine. But where the issue comes into play is that a lot of people in like 2023 were looking at old content from 2021 and jumped on the bandwagon of going into these markets that were killer in 2020 and 2021, but not great at all in 2023, buying homes and realizing that none of it was working, and all the gurus that told them that these markets were going to be amazing didn't end up working out. And then you get headline after headline after headline after headline about how Airbnb is dead, right? Meanwhile, I'm sitting over here in my corner during the exact same time period. I'm not trying to pump my own tires, but we haven't had a single property not be profitable. And we're also not in any of those markets that everybody has flocked to, right? Because we tried to just strategically pivot into the places that we're going to have demand no matter what long term. So that's the first piece as to what that I want to explain from somebody who's deep in the data and deep in Airbnb and can understand where those headlines are coming from. That's the main reason those headlines are showing up. Now, additionally, there's still a ridiculous amount of people who are buying Airbnbs that are doing next to zero research on it, or if they are, they're not even doing it properly. And I know that because I understand this data really, really well. And I see people make terrible purchases all the time. And it's the objective of my company is to ensure that nobody buys an unprofitable property. I'm trying to make sure, like trying to help people avoid that, right? And so regardless of it, there's still people who are buying, $800,000 homes that are only going to make like 75,000 to 100,000 if they're lucky, and they're barely going to make a penny, and then most likely they're going to lose money. And it's just because they don't understand the right market to be in. They don't understand the right property within that market. They don't understand even how to put it together or how to market it properly. Simple photo shoot logic of how to put it together. And so the problem is that Airbnb is evolving and getting better, as it should, right? Because it needs to get better and more consistent and more reliable for the guest to continue to feel better and better and better about it. And so then therefore you need hosts who are treating it very seriously and doing everything they can to be great at it. And those homes are always going to outshine the other homes. And when that continues to happen over and over again, those people are going to win. And then the people who don't put enough research in or really don't do the legwork at the beginning are losing out. And that's where, again, we're going to get a lot of people saying Airbnb is dead. But it's not, because I can see it day to day. I can see what's happening. It's dead for some people. It's not dead for others. You just got to put the legwork in to actually do it properly up front.
Yeah, and I guess at the corporate level, I mean, with their earnings report and their operating margins, EBITDA margins, I mean, everything seems super strong right now. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of, I see, the shifts in this market. And I'm a huge user of Airbnb personally, just with 5 kids and, family time and whatnot. Hotels just don't cut the bait usually anymore. But I've seen what I feel like is a massive increase in kind of the value that you get in a lot of places, between what the hosts are putting together. And I think some of that, from my standpoint, is due to professionals doing things instead of these onesies and twosies, mom and pop kind of, as you mentioned, chasing it in 2023 of like, oh, well, it sounds good. Like, let's put some money here. And they got one to manage and they're absentee, living 3 states away, and who knows what you get versus, having massive systems and boots on the ground and whatnot. So appreciate you sharing that.
You know what's been a game changer for how I watch basketball lately? Prize Picks. I've been making daily fantasy lineups every night during the playoffs, and it's wild how much more fun it makes the games. It takes less than 30 seconds to create a lineup. I just pick a couple of players, decide whether they'll do more or less than the projected stats, and that's it. This week I've got Luka Doncic for more than 28 points and Tatum for more than 8 rebounds. We'll see if they come through for me. The Taco Tuesday discounts are a cheat code. Last week they dropped Jokic's projection by 20%. And now every lineup you make enters the Takes 2 ticket sweepstakes, where you can end up sitting on the actual basketball championship game. Yeah, I'm in. They've also added the chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. And if your lineup isn't perfect, Flex Play still lets you double your money. It's the most fun I've had watching the playoffs in years. Download the app and use code Millionaire to get $50 instantly after you play for your first $5 lineup. That's code Millionaire to get $50 instantly after you play for your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And thanks again to Prize Picks for supporting today's episode.
Yeah. Where do you go from here? I mean, do you have a target net worth? Do you have a target, point for your business or anything that you're striving for at some point in your life?
No. So quick answer is no. When I was younger, I read every single freaking business book under the sun, and everyone's like, have your goals and set your goals and do this. And so I do all that. And every single last time you always veer off in a different direction or something along those lines. And it got to the point where I realized like, hey, maybe this isn't the route to be able to get where I want to go. And instead, what if I just focus on tomorrow and today, and what can I do really well today? And if I could do something really, really well today, maybe it'll lead to things going better tomorrow, right? And I've taken that focus for a very long time, and that the only time I've ever seen any bit of success is with that focus, rather than this is where I want to be in 10 years, and trying to map out something that is going to have so many variables that it's going to be nearly impossible to even happen in the first place. So with that being said, technically no. But obviously I want to be able to have a sustainable business, right? I've got an idea of where the business can technically go, and that makes it more stable. There's other service lines that we believe that we can offer that we can be really good at, that can continue to grow the business and continue to make it more stable. But really, I live as cheap as I possibly can. I've got 1 kid, not 5, but that's awesome that you have 5. I come from a family of 9, and so I love big families. And I want to be able to cover the bills, live, pretty reasonable, be able to do some things that I want to be able to do, but not have to try and work 99% of my life just to be able to have things that I don't get to use. And so that's kind of the way that I view the future goals and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
No, that's awesome. As you've gone on this journey, how do you think about, you've gone from like all these different periods of like riding the emotional waves of business. How do you think about your global liquidity position and investments that are outside of your business, whether it's equity in other business or real estate? I know you mentioned you want to get as much real estate over time. Like, how do you think about those kinds of things as it relates to, where you are with your cash position today, things going in the future? I mean, how much do you commit to buying more real estate down the road? How do you think about all that?
What's funny is, like, for a guy who used to be a financial advisor and also a guy who helps like people invest into Airbnbs, I'm not super strategic with my investments. In all reality, I'm just not. I love business. And so the way that I think about it is I want to grow a really, really strong business. And I heard somebody say this one time and I loved it, which was that money is made in business and invested into real estate, something along those lines. And to me, I'm like, that just makes sense to me. Like those are the two worlds I know well. So when I think of like what I plan on doing, I plan on just trying to build a really strong business that has the ability to make money, and then using that money to be able to invest into real estate. And ideally that real estate can also produce money, and I can use the money from real estate to cover the life and just keep that cycle going. And there's a concern of being too hyper focused into just Airbnb alone, right? So I got an Airbnb business and then I own a whole bunch of Airbnbs. That's definitely a concern. But I don't think I'm at a position in my investment life or financial life where I can strongly diversify into all these different areas to not have to worry about failing ever. I think over time, hopefully I can get to a place like that where, maybe I can get more diversification across the way that I'm investing into all the different options that are out there. But for now, it's just business and real estate.
That's cool. Well, let's wrap up with some rapid fire questions. What's the most expensive pair of shoes or pants that you've purchased?
$200 maybe for a pair of shoes. And I think that was way overpriced. Shoes drive me nuts how expensive they are. Pants, I have no idea. Levi jeans, maybe $100.
Okay. What about the most expensive meal out that you paid for?
Probably the one I told you about before we started talking. There was a sushi place in Orlando where you're at right now, and I paid for two other people. I think it was $400.
Okay.
So yeah.
What about the most expensive vacation or experience?
I went to Bali for 3 weeks and it cost about 10 grand with my girlfriend. That's about it.
Okay. What about the most expensive car?
I own a truck that's worth about $67,000 that, again, I think is overpriced and drives me nuts with the price of it. And so I used to drive, I went from a $2,500 vehicle to a $67,000 vehicle, and it eats me alive all day, every day. But I do love the truck, so I keep it.
Did you pay for that in cash or you got a note on it?
No, I got a loan on it.
Okay. What is the craziest thing that you've ever done to earn money?
Starting the Airbnb business was definitely the craziest, without a doubt. Just because, like, I mean, I was 24. I raised money, and then I just like took off from a business that was already working to then go and try and do this other business that, for whatever reason, I just really liked more. And I literally went down to like Florida, and it was an absolute shit show for a month. It was terrible. And then ended up in Chicago, and just like everything that I went through to be able to get that Airbnb business off the ground is the craziest thing that I've ever done in my life, without giving like an exact one story. But I haven't done anything. I haven't like stripped for money or something like that. If that's what you're getting at.
No. It's always great to hear people's answers. Sometimes I had one guy, I think he was peddling phone books back in the day, and we've had a few other crazy ones on, but
I mean, like, I delivered newspapers from the age of 12 to 17 for 6 in the morning. As it was 6 in the morning, you had to deliver them Monday to Saturday. And I did that from 12 to 17. And that was a way to start it. And I started, like, I don't know, stuff like that. I actually have one good story. Maybe this one will be a fun one. I know there's I always try to think of like doing like these like lawn care companies. But there was this one time where I'm like, I'm going to do a staining, like a deck staining or a fence staining company, because I watched my dad stain a fence and I was like, I could do that. It seems pretty easy. Zero experience, never stained a single deck my entire life. Put together like a whole website about it and ads out there, and then actually got like a handful of calls and went out and did quotes. Only one person hired me to clean his deck, and I did such a poor job that I was like, yep, I'm done with this, and just completely walked away. And I still get calls literally to this day for that company, because my phone number just like exists out there. We're like, hey, can you come stain my deck? And I'm like, nope, I don't do. That was like 15 years ago that I did that.
Oh my
but
gosh.
I was trying to figure out how to make money. You know what I mean?
Did you get paid for that job, or did you just walk off of it? You did get paid.
I got paid for it. Yeah,
oh, that's awesome.
He was a super nice guy. I gave a beer afterwards, but I was like, man, this is just not. I don't know what I'm doing at all. I got to get out of here.
So. You didn't want to call up your pops either.
Yeah.
How did you make your first buck? Was that it?
I mean, newspapers would really be the first way that I
Newspapers
actually
the
made
first
money.
one?
Yeah, I didn't really make too much money under the age of 12. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I hear you, man.
newspaper.
I was about your same age. I started at 13, I think, with my newspaper
Nice.
route. So, what's the dumbest thing you've ever wasted money on?
Truck.
This truck's biting you all interview, huh? Is it time to get rid of
No.
it?
No, I love it. That's the issue. But
What kind of truck is it?
just a Ford F-150.
Okay.
Like, it's
That's
nothing
average
special.
millionaire truck. It's good.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of millionaires have a Ford F-150.
Great. It's a great truck. But no, probably man, I don't know. I don't really regret a lot of the money that I've spent. Like, a lot of people look at like money that I've spent on travel and they're like, why'd you do that? And I was like, well, because it was awesome. And so I don't see it as a waste, but I've had a lot of other people think it was waste. But I don't know. I don't know what the most I've wasted on.
What's the coolest place you've been traveling?
Egypt.
Wow.
Egypt. Well, if you're saying coolest, the one I liked the most was Turkey. I think Turkey is so underrated. It's such a cool place. But I have been to Egypt. One of my favorite stories to tell, so I'll just tell real quick because we talk about travel. I went to Egypt during the peak of COVID because it was the only country that was open. And I wasn't working because my business just failed. And so I went to Egypt and was visiting Egypt. And I went into the Great Pyramid of Giza, and I was the only person in there the whole time I was in there. So and it was me and my tour guide. And he just let me, I got to walk through the whole thing by myself into like the main area.
Private tour that'll never happen again, that's for sure.
Exactly. So surreal moment, super cool thing. But yeah, that was probably the coolest thing I've done.
That's cool. What's a closely held belief that you once had that you recently changed your mind on?
Ooh, say that one more time.
What's a closely held belief that you once had that you recently changed your mind on?
Teams. I don't think one individual can ever outperform a team. And if you can't, you got to be able to build a business that can build a team, that can support a team. I know everybody talks about like, you're an entrepreneur, go out there, grind it, do it yourself, do all this stuff. But I think like the real objective is to be able to create a company that has this ability to put together an A-class team, not just like some people. You're talking about like the best of the best at what they do. And if you can get those people together, stuff happens that you could never, ever do on your own. And I truly believe that a team will always outperform an individual. And as an entrepreneur, your job is very similar to like the head coach of an NFL team. You've got to get the greatest guys on your team and get them all rowing the boat in the exact same direction. And for years, I was just trying to do everything on my own and like trying to always figure it out on my own. And it's like, no, you're good at one thing. This other guy's great at one thing. Bring that person into your team. And now the two of you are both great at two things. How many more of those people can you get? So that's a belief that has changed within the past year for sure.
Awesome. Any last pieces of advice for somebody who's just starting out on their journey?
Most people, yeah. I've been thinking about this one a lot. So, but I haven't said it out loud. So maybe this is gonna be my first time actually saying it. Most people stop educating themselves or getting educated at the end of high school or the end of whatever secondary school that they go to, and they just kind of like hard stop, right? So if you continue to educate yourself every single day or every week or any bit of education, you're going to actually get a leg up over everyone that isn't doing that because you're just continuing to make yourself smarter. And if you can continue to build new skills and learn new things, it will help significantly in all areas of your life, not just business, but all areas of your life. So I kind of think of like, can most people, I don't know. I hope I said that properly, right? Almost everybody stops educating themselves. So if you keep educating yourself, you'll just continue to get smarter. And being smarter is easier in life, I think, right? Because you can handle situations better, you can make better decisions, and all of a sudden life just becomes a little bit easier and you can understand things better. So that's my advice. Never stop learning. Always be the person in the room that wants to learn.
Awesome. That's John with a net worth of $1.7 million. Thanks for on the show today.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Jace Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website, millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.